The Atlanta Braves took some big shots early in the MLB draft on bats. Will it pay off? Was it worth the risk? We'll talk about it on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves on X and Locked On Braves on Instagram. If you're new and you're watching this on YouTube, please stop what you're doing real quick. Hit that subscribe button. Doesn't cost you a thing, but it helps me out a ton whenever you do that. Plus, you hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment down below. It helps others find us here on YouTube at Locked On Braves. You're listening on the audio version where we still get the majority of our listeners. Thank you so much as well. You can help out by leaving me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever it is you get your podcasts, because Locked On Braves is available wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of each and every day. And big shout out to all my everydayers out there. Let me know down in the comments section below if you're an everydayer here at Locked On Braves. Today's episode, we are going to cover the MLB draft. We're going to take a look at each pick. I'll give you my final thoughts on this draft and impressions of what the Braves did going bat heavy early on in this one. Was it worth the risk? Certainly feels like there was a lot of risk in this draft, but some big potential payoff. Plus, we'll look at our minor league spotlight from last week, some picks from recent drafts who are shining for the Atlanta Braves down on the farm. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Well, the 2025 MLB Draft is complete, just a 2-day event this year in Atlanta. Hopefully you were able to get there for the draft. If you were, let me know down in the comments section below. Would love to know what your experience was. Thoughts early on the draft before the Atlanta Braves picked. Eli Willits and Tyler Brimner being 1-2 was a bit shocking in this draft. Now, after that, things kind of settled down and guys went about where we thought they would. But after those first two picks, I thought things were going to get really wild, but honestly, they kind of settled down. I mean, we were talking about maybe the Atlanta Braves getting Tyler Brimner at 22 overall. He goes second overall in this draft. Gavin Keelan went 13th. Daniel Pierce went 14th. Those are probably my two favorites, at least in guys that might potentially fall to the Atlanta Braves, although there was really never much of a chance they were going to get to 22. Most mocks had them going in the 10 to 15 range, but I would have loved to have gotten either one of those guys. Merrick Houston, not somebody I was really high on, but a guy that a couple people had mocked the Atlanta Braves. He went 16th, and then Ike Irish out of Auburn, who I'd have loved to have gotten to, he went 19th overall, but none of them made it to the Atlanta Braves, and none of the players we talked about did the Atlanta Braves take at 22nd overall. And that is just the fool's errand of trying to talk about, predict an MLB draft. We have discussed probably 30, 40 plus names over the last month plus, and we didn't even discuss a name that the Atlanta Braves took at 22nd overall. Granted, I don't know a lot about high school players, and honestly, nobody knows much about high school players except for the people who actually scouted them or people in their hometown. That's just what it is at that point. There's not a lot to go on for high school players. That's why they're so risky, because there's just not a lot of data or video to go off of. But the Atlanta Braves take Tate Sothern with the 22nd overall pick in the MLB draft. High school shortstop, right-handed hitter, 5'11", 180 out of Nevada. Be honest, I don't know if shocking is the right word to use in this. First of all, just because it's somebody I hadn't talked about. I hadn't really seen anybody talk about it. I hadn't seen many people project him to go in the first 40 picks of the draft. Any of the mock drafts I looked at, I haven't seen this name. So surprised, I guess is a more calmer word to use for this Braves pick here at 22nd overall. But like I said, high school players, only people who really know them well are those who were there, scouted him, see him in person, coaches, people that have watched him on a daily basis. Those are the only people that really have any kind of insight into high school players. So it's not all that shocking to see high school players that maybe you haven't heard much of go earlier in the draft than others expected. Also, it's the MLB draft where signability becomes a big thing and plays, a part in maybe not taking the best players when it's your turn to pick. Now, he ranked 39th overall, according to MLB Pipeline, so it's not like this was, a stretch for the Atlanta Braves to take Tate here at 22 overall. Really good bloodlines. His brother Ty was taken in the 4th round of last year's draft. He has another brother, Ty's twin, who's at USC right now, which is where Tate was projected or is committed to go if he doesn't sign with the Atlanta Braves. The Braves are going to sign him. Tools on him, good back control, despite a lot happening in his swing. And in some of the video I've watched of him, it's a very closed stance with a very high and long leg kick, which are typically stances, swings that I like to stay away from, because just the more movement there is, and it's not just in his legs, it's his hands too. His hands kind of start middle, they go up and then come down. It's just a lot of movement in the swing. And those are swings that I typically like to stay away from and avoid, because I feel like it can lead to slumps because everything has to be working just right. It does help generate a lot of power. It is a very violent swing. It is a very, fast swing, and he's able to get to a lot of power in that 5'11" frame that he has. And even with all of that movement, at least in the high school level, he's still been able to have good back control, not chasing a lot, and be a good contact hitter. Now, it is certainly a swing that is geared towards power. And one of the things I wanted to see in this draft, and I think we see it here with some of the other picks, were the Braves going to go to guys who are more contact-oriented, well-rounded hitters, or were they going to continue to prioritize power? And it feels like, even though South Tessine could be a more well-rounded player, certainly the contact could continue into the pro level, although I think that's a big question mark with that swing. It's just a swing that's typically geared more towards a lot of power, but comes with a lot of swing and miss and a lot of risk. Doesn't mean he can't do it, but that's just generally what that type of swing is built for. But what it kind of tells me with the Braves is that they are still very much aggressive in looking for power. Now, outside of all that, the great bloodlines, also very quick, athletic, and can play either short or center field, which is just amazing. You got a guy with, at least at the high school level, really good back control, really good power, and can play two of the most demanding defensive positions outside of catcher and two of the most important positions on the field. That's very encouraging, and that sounds really good. I mean, potentially a 2020 player who can play shortstop and center field. Now, it sounds like most scouts like him better for center field, but again, the fact that he can play shortstop or center field is just truly, truly remarkable, and be a potential 2020 bat. So again, the swing concerns me with how that's going to translate into pro ball, but the potential here of grabbing somebody at 22nd overall that has 2020 potential, maybe more than that, we'll see, and can play two of the primary positions on the field, that feels like a big win for the Atlanta Braves. If that is indeed, and the bat plays and the bat control, the contact remains the same, I mean, this could be a steal at 22 overall. But I think there are certainly some questions, at least for me. And again, only those who have been able to watch him or scout him can really understand the concern and risk level with that swing and how he can control it on a day-to-day basis. But I think there is some risk there with that pick. I would imagine he's probably going to be at slot, maybe a little over. It's really hard to tell because, again, he was ranked 39th overall. You take him at 22nd, there's a chance he goes under a little bit, but I imagine it's going to be somewhere around slot value, which is $3.8 million. Here are some other players who were available at that pick, some others that we've talked about, and some guys that I would have liked. Cruz Schoolcraft goes 25th overall. Gage Wood, who pretty much everybody was mocking to the Atlanta Braves, goes 26th overall to the Phillies. So that's going to be one. If Tate doesn't work out and Gage Wood becomes the 19 strikeout guy that he was in the College World Series with the Phillies, that one's going to hurt a little bit. Jay Slaviolette, I kept talking about it. I mean, he was considered to be a 1-1, 1-2 pick coming into spring, had a rough year at Texas A&M. A lot of mocks had him going at 20th overall, and I was wondering, is there a chance he slips to the Braves so they take a shot on a big upside bat like that was considered by many to be, one of the top picks coming into the spring? The Braves passed that up, and he ends up going 27th overall to the Guardians. And I'm not saying that I would have loved Jay Slaviolette there, but again, a big bat, college bat, I feel like there's a little bit more certainty there with him than even with a high school player, which might give you more upside. Patrick Forbes from Louisville was a guy that got mocked to the Braves late, and I kind of started to like his profile and what he could bring. He goes 29th overall. The Diamondbacks, Riley Quick, a name that I talked about a lot. He goes 36 overall to the Twins. Well, Hiwa Aloy dropped all the way to 31st to the Orioles. Now, you've been listening to my draft prep. You know I was never big on Aloy. And even I talked about even if he was available with the Braves, it wouldn't be a pick that I necessarily loved. But I was surprised to see how far he fell and that he did fall past the Braves, and that, seeing what they did with going for some shortstops early, that they passed up on one of the best college shortstops in the draft. But again, just my personal preference. I didn't love Aloy, so I'm okay with them not taking him there. But I would have been okay with, Schoolcraft, Wood, even Laviolette, Forbes, or Riley Quick. But we'll see with Tate Sothern. Like I said, high school bat, big upside, but I think comes with some risk with that swing. But you're talking about a kid with 2020 potential. It can play the shortstop or center field. Hard to do much better than that at 22nd overall. All right, that's just the first pick of the draft. We got a lot more to get to, 20 other picks to talk about. We'll get into the rest of the draft here next. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, summer vacation, online shopping while you're on summer vacation, as my wife likes to do, entertainment, it's easy to lose track of where all that money goes. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. Who needs more stress in your life? And money can be one of the biggest stress makers for marriages, and they can definitely help you out at Monarch Money. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Yes, that's 50% at monarchmoney.com. With code LOCKEDONMLB, you're going to get half off of your first year. Thank you so much, as always, for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. Go check out the guys over at Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day. They'll have more draft recap for you. We'll be talking about all the highlights from the All-Star game. Hopefully you got to watch it. I don't get it as ESPN right now, so I haven't been able to watch it. But again, make sure you go check out the guys over at Locked On MLB. They'll get you caught up with everything happening around Major League Baseball. The guys at MLB Game Night do a fantastic job highlighting the biggest moments from each and every day. Let's jump back into the draft, though, because we got a lot more players to talk about. With the 60th overall pick, the Braves take Alex Lodis, the one guy we talked about in our draft prep podcast. The Braves took him with the 60th pick overall. College bat, right-handed hitter, 6'1", 190 out of Florida State, ranked 43rd according to MLB Pipeline. The Braves get him at 60. From St. Augustine, Florida, started at North Florida before transferring to Florida State, had a 976 OPS at North Florida, had an 800 OPS his first year at Florida State, and then an 1167 OPS this past year where he won the Dick Hauser Trophy Award, finishing with 17 home runs and 68 RBI, playing in the second toughest conference in college baseball. This past season at Florida State, he hit 394, 18 doubles, 17 home runs, 68 runs batted in, a 705 slug, 462 on base, 6 stolen bases, 27 walks to 55 strikeouts. It's actually a pretty high strikeout rate for a really good older college hitter. It's a 20% strikeout rate. Not ideal, for a college hitter, like I said, of this pedigree. But he does, and it's also not common to see that high strikeout rate for a guy that doesn't grade to have a lot of power. He showed a lot of power this last year at 17 with 17 home runs and a 705 slug. That would lead you to believe he has better than a 50 grade power. And perhaps he does. I always like to remind people, though, at the college level right now, offense is super powered. So keep that in mind whenever you're looking at any of these college numbers, whether it be on the pitching side, you see a high 4s, even a low 5 ERA. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad pitcher. Offense is overpowered right now at the college level. But Lodis, a really good season at Florida State. In fact, you look at his grades across the board, and talked about this in draft prep. It's 50s across the board, except for field, where he has a 45, which is not ideal for a guy who you're hoping can play shortstop for you. Now, there's a chance he could move to second base, although there are also reports that he made strides defensively at shortstop in his final season at Florida State. I watched him a little bit in the College World Series, was impressed with him as a guy that I really wasn't that high on when the draft season began, but watching him a little bit in the NCAA tournament, was a guy that I was okay taking So the Rays end up taking him again. We'll see if he sticks at shortstop, moves to second base. Some of that may play into some of these other guys that they took in this draft. But another bat that, like I said, showed some power, but has some swing and miss risk. And that's why I say I look at the bat profiles of some of these guys they've taken, and there's definitely some swing and miss risk, but some big power upside with the guys that they've taken. It also seems like a safe floor guy for Alex Lodis with the 60th overall is somebody that you feel pretty confident could move quickly as a college bat from Florida State and be a utility guy, maybe have some years as a starter, maybe a Nacho Alvarez, type of hitter with a little bit more power and maybe the better ability to stick at shortstop. I would imagine he signs for around slot value at $1.52 million. A lot of the guys that picked 60 that went before this, I liked. So again, I said this about Alex Lodis leading into it. Well, I wouldn't take him at 22 overall. If he fell to the Braves at 60th, I'd be all on board with them taking him at 60th overall, and he did fall there. Marcus Phillips went at 33rd, another pitcher I liked. Charles Davalon from Arkansas went at 41. Cam Canarello went at 43. AJ Russell, another Tennessee arm I really like, went at 52. The only player here that I would have taken, I honestly might have taken this guy at 22nd overall, was Max Ballou, the outfielder from Texas. He fell all the way to 74th overall. That probably would have been my pick at 60, was Max Ballou, another outfielder, assuming, seeing where Tate goes, but somebody for the outfield, could play center, most likely moves to a corner, but, has a lot of tools across the board. But the Braves pass on him to take Alex Lodis here. Anthony Iason's another player that's available that I liked at 60. Would have been a toss-up for me between Ianson and Alex Lodis there. Cody Miller was the next pick, college infielder out of East Tennessee State, right-handed hitter, 5'11", 189, not ranked at all in MLB Pipeline's top 250, so seems like an heavy underslot pick here for the Braves with their third overall pick in the draft. Did perform well in the Cape this summer, which might have boosted his stock slightly in his 3 years at ETSU. Very consistent overall /330, 425, 492 with an 11.3% walk rate and a 12.3% strikeout rate, 27 stolen bases. But his power took off in 2025. He went from an 086 ISO to a 292 ISO with 18 home runs, despite just 4 combined in his first 2 years at East Tennessee State. So another bat that we saw have a big jump in power in his last college season. So only other picks here that I would have liked. RJ Austin went 93rd, so it was right before this pick. You all know how much I loved him. Gavin Turley's the only one that I saw go just a little bit after this pick, the outfielder from Oregon State, that I would have gone with over Cody Miller. But I think Cody Miller is just going to be an underslot guy, and that's why they went there. Briggs McKenzie with their 4th pick. High school left-handed pitcher, 6'2", 190, ranked 69th overall. Projectable arm who can get up to 95 with a plus curveball, throw strikes, LSU commit. This seems like one of the Braves' overslot values here, going with Briggs McKenzie, a left-handed high school pitcher. Then in the next pick, their comp pick for Max Fried, they took Dixon Williams, infielder, left-handed hitter out of ECU. Also not ranked in MLB Pipeline's top 250, so seems like an underslot guy here to probably sign both Briggs and their next pick, Connor Essenberg, high school right-handed hitter out of Illinois, outfielder committed to Kentucky, ranked 221 by MLB Pipeline, was a two-way player, and many actually think he's a better pitcher, but he wants to hit, and the Braves drafted him as a hitter. We'll see if they let him do both. That could be the reason why the Braves probably have to go over slot on him, as he wants to do both things at Kentucky and has been told he can do both things at Kentucky, hit and pitch. So the Braves might have to pay extra for that. But a corner outfielder with a power arm, obviously being a pitcher. And so that's what the Braves are banking on here, that they can pull him away from his Kentucky commit, have him focus on hitting. But this seems like another overslot guy here, especially if they're going to try to sway him away from being able to do both things at Kentucky. With their 6th pick in the draft, the Braves took Landon Beidelshees out of Arkansas, left-handed pitcher, 6'3", 230, ranked 208 on MLB Pipeline's top 250. Was given an opportunity to start at Arkansas after transferring there this past year, but really struggled in SEC play. Just personally, somebody who watched him a good bit during the SEC season. A bit disappointing. I think the most likely outcome here is a lefty reliever with a ceiling as a dominant lefty setup guy, which is perfectly fine for your 6th pick in the draft. I'm sure the Braves are going to try him as a starter, though, knowing the Braves are going to try him as a starter for 4 years before finally deciding that, hey, we've moved this guy into the bullpen. He can probably be up with the big league level right now. We'll see how it goes. I do think it's a pretty safe floor for Landon to be a left-handed reliever at the big league level. And like I said, I think there's upside for him to be a dominant type of lefty reliever, which is not terrible for your 6th pick in the draft. At the 7th pick in the draft, they took Zach Royce out of UTSA, right-handed pitcher, threw 94 innings at UTSA last year with a 5.17 ERA, 1.47 whip, plus slider. He can get into the mid-90s with his fastball, could move quickly as a reliever, which is pretty common trait for a lot of these picks. With their 8th pick, they took Carter Lobaz out of William Mary, a senior sign. Their next several picks here are senior signs. Lobaz, mostly reliever over his 4 years at William Mary, a 10.18 career K per 9. Their 9th pick, they took Logan Braunschweig out of UAB, outfielder, left-handed hitter, another senior sign, hit over 300 in his last 3 years at UAB, stole over 20 bases the final 2 seasons. Not projected to have a lot of power, but he did hit 7 of them in his final season with UAB after hitting a combined 3 in his first 3 college seasons. So again, another trend that you're seeing here are guys who showed a lot of power growth in their final college seasons. For Braunschweig, too, really fast guy. So you're getting somebody with a loud tool with your 9th pick here. With your 10th pick, you took Cade Woods out of LSU, another senior sign, only threw 2 2/3 innings with LSU over the past 2 seasons, but struck out 38 and 29 in the 3rd innings at Alabama in 2023 and had a strong showing in the MLB Draft League where he was up to 97. And the Braves love taking guys who have good performances in the MLB Draft League. With the 11th pick, they took Colin Daniel out of UAB, right-handed pitcher, had a 3.13 ERA, 3.15 ERA in his past 2 seasons, throwing over 90 innings in each of those. Seems like a Bryce Elder type of pick here. Jay Woolfolk out of Virginia with their 12th pick, another senior sign, spent all 4 years at Virginia. Transitioned him to the bullpen his final 2, or to the rotation his final 2 years, and just wasn't quite as good. It was fine definitely for a college pitcher, but his first 2 years as a reliever was really, really good. So we'll see which direction the Braves go with him. They also took Logan Forsythe out of La Tech, a right-handed pitcher, led La Tech with 71 strikeouts in 2025 over 51 1/3 innings, upper 90s fastball with a good slider. Again, another theme that you see in this draft, big fastballs with good sliders, big stuff, but control issues here for Forsythe. With the 14th pick, they took Matthew Curtis out of Virginia Tech, 6'5", right-handed pitcher, had 2 years at USC Upstate before transferring to Va Tech. Doesn't quite have the stuff of Forsythe, who we just talked about, despite the good K numbers, but comes with similar control issues. He had 49 strikeouts in 38 2/3 innings last year at Virginia Tech. Their next pick was Dallas Macias out of Oregon State, an outfielder who hit .315 with 13 doubles and 8 home runs in 2024, but absolutely fell off a cliff in 2025. Hit just 159. You're not going to see many players drafted who hit 159 in their final college season with a 243 slugging percentage. He was still able to maintain a solid on-base percentage, though, over 300 because he walked more than he struck out. So it seems like some good plate discipline there. And if the hit tool can come back around, maybe 2025 was just a fluke. I think there were some injuries in there as well and just got off to a slow start and never recovered. Braves are banking on the fact that that was just a fluke and that the good plate discipline and the hit tool that he had in 2024 comes back. With their 16th pick, they took Nico Wagner out of West Valley College, another right-handed pitcher, big 6'5", threw 95 1/3 innings last year, a 2.17 ERA, a 1.11 whip, 8.87 K per 9, 26 walks and 94 strikeouts, and show good stuff in the MLB Draft League. Can get up to 95 with a slider and a change. Sounds like someone who has a chance to be a bulk type of pitcher in the back end of a rotation. Their 17th pick, they took Brody Fowler out of North Greenville, 6'7", right-handed pitcher, 83 2/3 innings last year, 3.33 ERA, 17 walks to 90 strikeouts, was a two-way player, but really started focusing on pitching in 2025 after missing all of 2024. So perhaps some potential there. Avon Cabral out of Northeastern, 5'11", right-handed pitcher, 89 1/3 innings this past year, 2.92 ERA, 14 walks to 74 strikeouts. He had a stretch this past year at Northeastern from March 28th to May 16th, where he went at least 6 innings in each start. He allowed 3 or fewer runs in 10 of 11 starts, walked 1 or fewer in 8 of 11 starts, and struck out at least 6 in 7 of 11 starts. So a very solid pitcher, very consistent pitcher for Northeastern. Might be worth a look, or I guess is, according to the Braves, worth a look as a back-end starter type with good command. With their 19th pick, they took Ryan Hepner out of British Columbia, right-handed pitcher. Actually saw his ERA go up every year. 2025, it was 4.38, 47 innings, 77 strikeouts, 250 average against. In his first year as a freshman in 2023, whether his best numbers, a 3.13 ERA, a 72 innings pitched, 17 walks to 80 strikeouts, and a 246 average against. And with their final pick in the draft, Hayden Freeze out of Western Carolina. They had 21 picks overall. I think my numbers kind of got off there because they had two fourth-round picks. But their final pick was Hayden Freeze out of Western Carolina, 6'1" outfielder. 2025, he slashed 335, 436, 511 with 11 doubles, 9 home runs, 32 walks to 27 strikeouts. So good hit tool, corner outfield type who might have some power upside with what he showed in 2025. Again, very much a theme of this draft. The bats they took were guys who showed a lot of power upside in their final season. They've also already signed an undrafted free agent in Daniel Brooks, a 6'7" pitcher out of College of Charleston who had a 10 Ks in 5 2/3 innings in the MLB Draft League as well after striking out a batter per inning at College of Charleston this past year. All right, we'll take one more break. I'm going to come back, give you my final thoughts on the draft and give you some of the highlights from the minor league level this past week. We'll do all that here next. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades at supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every single time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining supplyhouse.com's free Trademaster program. Every Trademaster gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks. Plus, when you use our promo code SH5, you're going to get 5% off your first order. Again, that's promo code SH5 at supplyhouse.com for 5% off your first order. All right, we're going to wrap things up quickly here as I've gone way over time. I apologize for that. I'm going to have to scram some of this in here at the end. My final thoughts on the draft, and of course, we're not going to have a full picture of this draft until we see the signings, which the deadline for that is now July 28th. So those numbers will probably start coming in pretty quickly. And it's hard to say much because I had heard of two of these guys for sure and another one, but we just hadn't heard much of them in the entire draft. So I really don't know a lot about these guys coming in. I have to do some more research on them. They went position players with 5 of their first 6 picks. It seemed like a very forced strategy. I don't want to say forced isn't the right word, but it seemed like a definite focus of going position player heavy early on in this draft and then just taking some shots on some arms late. I almost feel like they should have. I wish they would have just kept with the theme of taking bats. You know, they've done so well with pitching, and I've fully been on board with it. Ain't broke, don't fix it. They've done a great job of drafting and developing pitching, but they did need a year where they just kind of went all in on pitching, and they took their shots at the beginning of the draft on some high upside talent, both on the position player side and with the hitter Briggs that they took. But I almost wish they just would have continued that through the rest of the draft and just continue taking shots on some position players to fill up your system, because it hasn't really been an issue with developing high-level bats in the organization, from a Michael Harris, a Nacho Alvarez, a Vaughn Grissom, a Drake Baldwin. They've been able to find some value bats in the draft and develop them into major league players. It's just the depth in the system. There's just not a lot of position player depth in the system. So that's really my only initial angst that I have with the draft, is that they just didn't. I wish they would have continued going with the bats. Just go all in on the bats this year and take a lot for depth. They really didn't do anything after the 7th round. I think they're going to have to spend a lot of money early on those high school players that they took. 3 of the first 6 picks were high school players, and those usually are going to cost you. And it seems like it's going to cost the Braves a lot because they didn't take any shots later in the draft. 4 senior signs in this draft, and then nothing but college players past the 7th round. So again, if they hit on the high schoolers, this could be a great draft, but it is pretty risky because you're putting a lot of eggs in that basket for this draft. That those high school players, you have to hit on those high school players in order for this to be a successful draft. And that's just risky because high school players are unknowns for the most part. They're 17, 18-year-olds, they're 16, 15, 16, 17 when you're scouting them. You don't know how they're going to mature and grow just as people, but also into their bodies as well, and how that's going to change. It's why signing international prospects is such a crapshoot. You just don't know because you're scouting them when they're 13, 14 years old. So there's a ton of risk in taking high school players. It also costs you a lot of money to take high school players. There are some college bats that I would have liked for them to take early on in the draft that I think would have been more surefire things, but there's definitely more upside with high school picks. And the Braves definitely went upside heavy early on in this draft. And I think it cost them to the point where they really couldn't do much late. That is my opinion on a guy who knows two of the players that the Braves took in this draft. From what I've seen, Matt Powers, who does a great job. You can follow him over on X, Garrett Spain as well. Matt Powers is Matt Powers 31 on X. He does a great job, one of the best out there in covering the draft. Obviously, our Lindsey Crosby, he does a great job over there. You can check out his podcast as well. And I know he covered the MLB Draft for us here at Locked On, and he was, Locked On MLB prospects guy in the past. So he is very good at seeing talent and recognizing talent too. So make sure you check out Lindsey's take on the draft. But just my kind of outsider view on this and covering a lot of drafts, it just feels like they spent a lot of money early. They went and got their guys, but it's just risky taking high school players. And would I have liked to seen them maybe take one less risk and go with one more kind of certainty, or there's nothing certain when you're drafting players, but one more kind of safer pick earlier in the draft, take a safer bat like a Max Ballou. I think I've been a little bit more okay if that were the outcome, but we'll have to see. Again, it'll probably be 3-4 years before we see how these high school players develop. But the Braves, they went bat. So you were wanting for them to go for some bats. They went bat heavy. That this draft is going to be built around some of those high school bats they took early on in this draft, especially the high school bats that they took, in Tate Sothern as well as with Connor Essenberg. Those are going to be, two of the bigger bats to watch in this draft, along with Briggs McKenzie that they took as the high school pitcher in this draft. And Alex Lodis could be a college bat that moves pretty soon. That is, one of the safer picks that they took in this draft early on. But outside of that, with 3 high schoolers, a lot of upside, but certainly it's a lot of risk in there. So it's just a draft that's going to be really hard to judge until we see how some of these high school players perform and to see what they had to spend to get these players. So those are my initial thoughts on the draft. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button on YouTube, leave me a comment down below. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.